Hello there and welcome back to Icebane Gaming. I am Icebane and today I will be doing an art time-lapse. Today I will be showing you me drawing jazz once again. I picked up one new trick since I last did a time-lapse, and that trick would be guidelines. As you can see, I've already finished the guidelines, but I decided to start recording around the time I was doing the red lines. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so as I said, I was going to get started on the red lines here, and I decided then that I was going to have headphones resting on the finger, because otherwise it would just be a hand sitting out there. And it gave me an excuse just to not draw the headphones resting around the neck. I drew Jazz a little bit more busty than I normally would, however, I had already finished the guidelines and I wasn't going to go back and edit them, just didn't feel like it. And I didn't notice until later either. Here I am working on the character left, canvas right side of the sweatshirt. However, I do not keep those lines because I realize that the way that I had it set up, the sweatshirt would be very tight to the skin, and usually they're quite baggy, especially for Jazz's sweatshirt and her character design. There I am adjusting the finger because I decided that the headphones would have a bit of weight to them and they'd be pulling the finger down. I spent a little bit of time adjusting the hand there, only to turn it back to normal, and there I am adjusting the pinky because I realized it was a bit long. Alright, and there's the headphones. At least the start of them anyways. I did look away from the screen quite a bit around this time, so I took a bit longer than I normally would on it. Thinking back at it, I did look away from the screen a lot when working on the headphones. And there I am adjusting the ears a little bit because I realized that they weren't true to the character the way I designed her before, and there I am realizing my mistakes on the fabric. And then I started drawing the tail. Usually with Jazz it's going to be a big puffy tail. And there's the little lines in the fur, and I realized there that the nose was not correct, and I adjusted it a little bit. And there I am adjusting the heart to match the bust of the build. And here I am. This is when what I mentioned earlier, where I realized that I drew her a bit more busty than I normally would, and I didn't really know how I wanted to fix it, because nothing really felt right with all of these line changes. Like that felt a little bit more blocky than it should be. And then I end up going to the smaller bust build, but then I decide against it again later because I didn't like how it felt. And normally when I draw Jazz, she's gonna have a smaller bust, so whatever, let's consider this fan service Jazz. I copy-pasted the heart because I put a little bit more detail into it, and there I am adjusting it to the build. Finishing up the neck strings, whatever they're called, hoodie strings there, and I started adjusting the armpit there, and I realized that that would be going against the build, so I adjusted it back. Okay, warning for any of you who are photosensitive, epilepsy warning, I am doing color palette selection. Normally with Jazz, I just use the same old picture, the first of the renditions of her I did digitally. And because the color palette I chose for her there, I really liked how it looked. The only difference in the color palette for the drawing I'm doing now is I made the orange lines darker for the actual fur palette. And yeah, only a few more colors. Bear with me for those of you who are photosensitive. And I believe that's just about it. Just 1 second. There still is a bit on the tail, I believe. Alright. And I believe that's it. There we go. Those of you who are photosensitive, feel free to join back in. Here I am working on the eyelashes. I decided to go with black, or well, a dark brown for the eyes and mouth because purple isn't a natural color, even though that's what I had in her original palette. I just felt like mixing it up a little bit and using an actual dark color instead of a medium dark purple. Alright, and I am doing all of the face fur, and there's the tail. These little rough lines for the lighter parts of the tail are not there to stay. Those would be removed later. I'm going to mess up a little bit on the color palette of the ears because I made them completely orange for the outer parts. Then I made them a little bit too light. I chose the wrong color for it. And I'm going to come back to those later when I'm in the coloring phase. Alright, and I am working on the hoodie. I made the lines a little bit sharper here than I did in the red lines because, well, I just felt like it would look more natural to have the wrinkles that way. And there's the creamy color of her jacket, and then the heart. The heart I didn't have anything for a color palette for, so I decided there on the spot that it was going to be a pinkish red. And here I go on the hand. And I started working on the headphones. And I believe this is the point at which I took like a minute to look at something else. There I go. Back to it. And yeah. I messed around with the lines a little bit in there. Decided to go with that very open feeling one. And there is the dark lines of the tail. I believe that's just about it for the lines. And here is the color flats. I did all of the eyes on the color flats on this one because I wanted it to look a little bit softer, and I was utilizing a few more techniques I had learned about making eyes. And yeah. There is the shading of the eyes. Just a very simple shading. I have learned cell shading since my last time lapse, but I don't use it that much. I mostly use it for stylized things. I usually go for a softer shading, regardless. Here I am working on the fur pattern on the tail. This takes probably the longest out of the entire project. I want to say it took me about 30 minutes to do the tail fur patterns. That's just how it is. If you aren't patient with your art, it's not going to turn out nice. Just get lost in the strokes. Makes it a little bit more therapeutic, if you ask me. Alright, there I am. I went back to do the coloring on the nose and face. Just to get that out of the way. Because I was working outside in, or well, inside out, the outer parts of the fur were a bit easier to complete. I just had to make sure that there weren't any gaps between the fur pattern. There I am working on the ear tufts. I think I went back to the tail last. Alright, and here I am figuring out the colors of the fur, and there I go, realizing my mistakes on the ears. And there is the actual color of the ears. And there's the head complete, and I go back to the tail. And this is how I usually cheat on the tail. I color with a behind brush, behind all the fur pattern texture I did, and then I block it in with a bucket fill. And then afterwards I did a little bit of cleanup. I removed those lines because they didn't look nice, and then I did some more work on the fur to make it look a little bit more smooth. And here I go, starting on the jacket. Since it's a lot of flat colors for the color flats, obviously it's in the name, it took me not that long to do the more smooth parts of the body. Get the complex parts out first with the fur patterns. There I go, doing the nails, because I hadn't done them earlier. And there is pretty much all of the color flats. Did a little shine on the eyes to make them have a little bit more personality. And I decided to do a very simple background for this one because, well, normally I do complex backgrounds. I just wasn't feeling it today. So I just made one with a bunch of little purple circles. Add a little twist filter to it. Filled in the gaps with more purple. Here I was going to do a rotation blur, then I decided against it when I realized that the render time for that would be about 50 minutes. I decided to add a noise filter anyways to just make it have a little bit more static feel to it. Just an aesthetic choice. Here I start on the shading. I started by doing it backwards for the shading, but then I decided against that partway in, and I decided to go for a more constructive form of shading by doing it manually instead of subtracting from the shadow. There I am doing all of the little detail work on the head, and there goes the detail work on the neck. I like shading this way because it makes it feel a bit more painty, even though I'm not really painting anything. It just makes it feel like there were more strokes I put into mind when creating the image. The only downside of me doing this and adding the noise background is that for the full file size, it's about 61 megabytes for the finished product, but I bumped it down to a more normal size canvas to do the render on this one. Normally my canvas size is about 7.5 thousand by 12.6 thousand, so my canvases are usually huge, even for most artists. Here I am deepening the shadows, making them feel a little bit more natural, doing little touch-ups. And there's a little bit more touch-up on the face, and I am about to get started on the lighting. There I go. I was deciding on how I wanted to do it this time. Decided to go for my my classic vivid light in the end. I add a little darkish circle to the background to make it pop a little bit, make the background a little bit less flat. And here I go with the vivid light layer. I'm shading mostly the places where the light would be touching directly for the light. If you're wondering where the light is located, it's probably going to be in front of the subject, off in front of like the tip of the tail a little distance, and there I was done. But yeah, that's it, and I will be making another time-lapse in the future. It was a fun, quick little drawing here to shake my rust. I have been experiencing a bit of artist block for the past month or so, and yeah, it was really fun to make. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching. Feel free to like it if you do. Maybe subscribe if you want to subscribe. Basically, I'll post videos as often as I can. Don't expect a daily upload. At least not for now. Maybe some point in the future. But regardless, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope your holidays have been going great so far. Today is New Year's at the time I believe I'm going to be posting this. And I hope that 2021 is better than 2020 has been. Anyways, that's enough of me rambling. Have a good one.